Welcome to the Industrial Athletic Trainers Society VNS On Demand. We are excited to share with you value-added continue education programs. Stick around at the end, or check the video description for more details on how members can claim their CU credits.
Please work. I'm here today with Dr. Stephen Capobianco.
Nice.
First, thanks. Yes. Rock star. First, I want to give a little bit of background as to how I know Stephen. I actually knew Rock before I ever met him. When you find a kinesio tape that stays on a rubber mill operator for almost a week, you stick with it, right? So my workers have been able to benefit from his passion years before I met him. And then I was at ASSP in 2023 with San Antonio, right?
That's right.
And I walked by a Rock tape booth, did a double take, and went back. And he was there and introduced himself to me. And I introduced myself and I cut to the chase. And I was like, can I have an entire roll of kinesio tape? And he said, absolutely. And the rest is history. Last year I got tape and a shirt. Okay, I'm going to bleed him dry. So when I saw that this session was a submittal for VNS this year, I was over the moon and immediately messaged him and asked if I could do the honor of moderating his session. And he agreed. And here we are. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to properly introduce him now. Everyone say hello to Dr. Steve Capobianco. He is a passionate educator and innovator in manual movement therapy. With over 20 years of experience, he graduated from Palmer College of Chiropractic West in 2003 and has dedicated his career to improving how people move and feel. Committed to helping others, Dr. Capobianco has expanded his skills with a postdoctoral diploma in rehab from the ACA and certification as a strength and conditioning specialist from the NSCA. As a co-founder of Rock Tape, he has shared his expertise worldwide, teaching kinesiology taping, soft tissue therapy, and movement strategies to practitioners and enthusiasts alike. When he's not teaching, he practices what he preaches by staying active through Ironman triathlons, mountain biking, and adventure racing. His hands-on approach and genuine passion for movement and wellness continue to inspire and make a difference in this field. So Steve, over to you.
Wow. Thank you very much. It's always awkward to have those done. It's almost like having folks, wish you or singing you happy birthday. You just don't know where to look or what to do with your hands, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. Thank you for the opportunity. This has been kind of like a resurgence of my passion within the industry, working in this space, which is unique to us. We started in 2010. And we focused our attention on sports medicine primarily, right? Focusing on the athlete. And that could be from youth athletics all the way to professional, but we just weren't in the workplace until we started to be asked to be in the workplace. And I quickly recognize and now value of what we can do for the industrial athlete. So I'm super excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to share my viewpoint on taping in this space. This has already been introduced, so I don't need to double take, but I do want to double down on what literally drives me every day. Why did I stay with the brand even after its acquisition in 2018 is because I believe in education. This is why I'm here, and this is what really drives me every day. I'm super curious, and I'm focused on movement, and you're going to see that kind of layered into the discussion today as it relates to tape. These are going to be the objectives covered. Obviously, I want to hopefully introduce you, maybe reintroduce some of you that tape on the body is less mechanical and more neurological. I'm going to focus the attention on what are the neurological effects of tape on the brain and the nervous system as a whole. We're going to talk about some simple applications because as you better understand what it's doing neurologically, you're going to see very quickly it simplifies the application. We've all been inundated with these elaborate, complex, probably over complex applications, techniques, and they're just not necessary. And you're going to see that very quickly. We're going to talk about using the tape more so for functional outcomes, less to do with activating or inhibiting a specific muscle. And then lastly, I want to encourage you guys to start to think about this at least as part of your toolbox for your daily practice. Disclaimer, obviously, I'm one of the co-founders. I'm still Senior Director of Education and Innovation with Implus, which is the parent company now of the brand of Rock Tape. But here's what I want to stress. Use whatever tape fits your model. What I want to stress today is the application update in respect to how this tape actually works. And really, I want to build a new model. I want to reiterate what we've all been told over the last 20 to 30 years, that we're really interacting with muscles, tendons, ligaments. I want us to focus on how do we influence someone's movement. That could be influencing their muscles, tendons, and ligaments, but it's movement that really drives the individuals that we're working with. And that's really the equity that we have to be able to make someone, to have someone buy into what we're trying to provide them. The reason I'm kind of moving away from this idea of muscles, tendons, and ligaments, the mechanical tissues that we interact with, is because these simple solutions aren't solving the complex problems that we're typically all faced with. We're overly focused or preoccupied on biomechanics, even though we know that biomechanics alone don't answer a lot of the problems that we're faced with. And we need to respect that there are multiple variations in human posture, movements, mobility, flexibility, and more. And so we need to identify the complexity of the individuals that we're working with. So my job today, we're going to be focusing on tape, of course, but I hope you guys see very quickly that this extends to more than just tape. It's most of the interventions that we use on the individuals that we work with and serve, that we need to better understand. Obviously we'll talk about the what is kinesiology tape for those that are not as familiar, but I want to provide you the why before we get to the how. The how will be the easiest component of this discussion today, I can assure you. I want to shift our storytelling. I want to get away from the models that have been presented of activating a muscle or inhibiting a muscle, which has all been debunked, and I'm going to show you the data. I want to provide you hopefully with a new story that you could explain to the individuals that you're working with, that makes sense, that they can understand, and that will optimize their buy-in. As I said before, Rock Tape's been in the space of talking to the athlete, the sport athlete primarily, but we can translate what we've learned in sports medicine now to the workplace, and it's working so seamlessly because the buy-in is already there. They see athletes using tape, having tape on their body, and they're starting to ask. They've already asked, but they're now adding to that conversation of how does this tape help me, and is something that I be considering. So I want to get away from muscles, solely talking about muscles. I want to talk about the main organ that we're interacting with, which is the skin, and how I identify the skin as a handle that we can use to be able to manipulate the tissue, but also as a megaphone to talk to the brain. I want us to talk about this therapeutic alliance, that we're working in tandem with the individual versus operating on them. And I want to present to you this simplistic approach to taping that I hope just makes it easier for most people to understand. As I said, machines are complicated. Tape is not complicated. It's complex because we're dealing with a human being, but understand we're not just taping a piece of meat. We're taping an individual attached to that piece of meat, and that individual presents to us with different sensory and motor nervous systems. They come with different experiences, histories, expectations, emotions, all the things that you're all inundated with. We need to better understand that we're working with the individual, not just the hamstring, the rotator cuff, their paraspinal muscles, whatever tissues that you feel are involved. There's more to the conversation. So as you read this, and I always get a chuckle when I read this because I do it so automatically, and I'm sure you guys are doing the same as you read this, that we have this predictive sense where we have an expectation of what we're looking at very quickly, and our brain is so amazing at doing this. And I'm going to take that idea of thinking to the problems that we're faced with on a daily basis, the pain issues, the movement issues that we're faced with. Are they more of a defect, or is it a defensive stance that our brain is taking? Is it restriction in range of motion, or is it protection? Is it a tight muscle, or is it a taut muscle trying to decrease a threat? Is it a mobility issue, or is it a control issue? Is it a pain issue, or is it pain trying to remind us to get away from a certain situation? So these are things that I want you to think about, because our nervous system, our brain in particular, is a predictive machine. It's always trying to predict the immediate future. And it's doing that to be able to assess, is the immediate future a threat or not? Do I need to change my behavior, change my movement to be able to move into the near future? So we need to understand that the brain is continuously doing these calculations to be able to predict the future, to be able to make a better decision. And to be able to predict the future, you need to have good maps. And so we know that good movement requires good perception, and good perception requires good maps. Just like if any of us, I've been traveling a lot this month, if my GPS map wasn't working, I would have more difficulty navigating whatever city I was in. So the clarity of that map is critically important for my ability to predict my next turn, for example. And the same thing is true when it comes to our central nervous system. The brain is dependent on the clarity of our map, and we're going to talk about what these maps are. There's not just one map. There are many, many maps. But the ones that we're going to focus attention on are the ones that actually influence our pain and our movement. So the clarity of these maps is critically important. And when they're not clear, when your body map is unclear, smudged, lacking resolution, all the terms that I want you to start to think about, because this is going to help your storytelling to your workers, to the individuals that you're working with, that when your map isn't clear, when you don't know where your knee is in space, your lower back is in space, your shoulder is in space, your brain will do what it needs to do to protect you, which is increase your pain, great motivator. It's going to decrease your mobility. It's going to increase tenderness, tightness. It's going to increase your avoidance behaviors from a specific movement that you just don't have a good picture of. So it's critically important to understand that the clarity of your map, of which has been identified in multiple areas of the body, lower back included, that when you have pain, it's been well identified that the clarity of your somatosensory map of that region of the body is lacking. And just by providing a novel stimulus, that could be hands-on techniques, it could be a foam roller, it could be vibration techniques, it could be a strip of tape, has been shown to optimize the clarity of that map. So this is the new model of thinking when it comes to these types of novel sensory stimuli, including tape, is that it's clarifying the somatosensory map of a specific region that you're interacting with, in this case, the lower back. But there are multiple areas of the body that have been identified to lose their tactile acuity. That's another term for our somatosensory mapping. This is in osteoarthritic knees, and it's been shown that poor body sensory maps disrupt tactile perception, decreases our perception, motor function, and pain processing, because when you can't when you can't perceive the area, you can't predict where that body part is going to be in the near future. So your brain identifies that as a threat, and it's going to protect itself, as it should, to decrease your movement and increase your pain. And so a disrupted body schema impairs your posture, your coordination, and your functional movements. So again, I want to stress the point that this model of thinking is that our job is to help someone clarify their maps. So how do we do that? If you guys look at this image, some of you are going to see circles and some of you are going to see squares. I'd be curious, and you guys could put it in the chat. Who sees squares? Who sees circles? And everyone is going to be different depending on their perception of what they're looking at. But if you see circles and you can't see the squares, or vice versa, what if I bring attention to it? and I bring attention to it just by kind of creating the outline of the circles that exist in this image. And for those that can't see the squares, what if I provide the clarity of where those boxes are, or those squares are? When I bring the attention to it, it becomes almost like a spotlight, illuminating, what we just didn't see. And this is the same kind of analogy that I use for tape on the body for someone that has some type of smudging, is that we're just bringing attention to the area, that we're illuminating the area via taking advantage of kinesthetic touch. And we know that kinesthetic touch or guidance is 30 times faster than visual guidance and many thousand times faster than audio guidance. So we're taking advantage of a significant megaphone to the brain by taking advantage of touch stimuli through the skin. So we're basically talking to the brain, taking advantage of the skin and the hair on the skin. And we're going to talk a little bit of both very, very quickly here, but it's the touch stimuli that stimulates that somatosensory cortex, that provides that clarity that the brain needs to be able to better predict the future. So novelty is here for the win here. A novel stimulus is going to have a better conversation to the brain. If it's something like our clothing on our body, when we initially put it on, there's more activation happening in that part of the brain, but we accommodate to that stimulus because the brain says, you're wearing this all day. It's not providing me any more novel information. I don't need to pay attention to it. But the cool thing of having an elastic strip of tape that activates depending on how you're moving will continually provide that stimulus to that area of the body, to that respective region in the brain or the somatosensory cortex. So we're taking advantage of this idea of a novel stimulus stimulating the somatosensory cortex to be able to refine the clarity of our maps. That's the basic science that we're learning. This is your brain on tape. So they've done some really good, studies in the last 5 to 10 years, looking at what happens neurologically at different regions of the brain. And what they found by just taping 50% of the skin of the knee, that these are the areas of the brain that were most stimulated. And the ones that I want to highlight here were the areas of the brain associated with sensation, coordination, decision-making, planning of complex coordinated tasks, and coordination of unconscious aspects of proprioception. All of that mumbo jumbo is saying that we are illuminating that part of the brain that is involved with coordination, sensation, and overall awareness of where the body part is. So we're getting more and more information that tape has the ability to stimulate the clarity of our touch or somatosensory maps. It does so through the skin. We know that the skin is highly laced by many mechanoreceptors. The ones that are most activated when it comes to tape are Merkel discs, Meissner's, and Ruffini endings, but we are learning through microneurography that we're stimulating other receptors, which we're going to talk about in the near future here. The skin has 45 miles of peripheral nerves. We're taking advantage of that to be able to have that megaphone conversation to the brain. And so again, because of the elastic quality of this tape, and I can't expect everyone to know, I'm sure most of you do, I'm probably pretty proficient in it, but because of the tape's elasticity and its recoil, this mechanical effect on the skin level actually has the effect to be able to stimulate the underlying mechanoreceptors, the ones that I just referred to. And we know that by stimulating the fast-traveling mechanoreceptors, we do have, using Melzack and Wall's model of the pain gate theory, that we can actually decrease the nociceptive barrage, the danger signals that are being sent to the brain. That is still to be true, but that's only part of the conversation. We know that pain is more than just nociception, right? So what's happening top down, this is what gets me super excited that yes, what I've been just communicating to you on as it relates to the sensory cortex, that we can improve the touch map. But now over the last, let's say, less than the last 10 years, that we're getting a lot of information of how we're influencing the affective cortex, the emotional map centers. That includes the insula, the anterior cingulate, the prefrontal cortex, the regions that are involved with the emotional context of the sensations that we're feeling in the body, including pain. Why is this important? Because our ability to regulate our emotional map, if our emotional map is unregulated, the sensation that we experience is typically elevated. We don't have the ability to recognize that this is a normal sensation. We recognize all of those internal sensations, what they call interoception, as a threat. And so we catastrophize, we add fuel to the fire. So that's where we see the amplification of pain when our emotional or our affective maps are compromised. And we can actually influence the affective region of the brain, this emotional map center, through hairy skin. So what we're finding is that all of our hair follicles, which is the majority of our body, regardless if you're a hairy, quote unquote, hairy or not, we all have hair covering most of our body except for the glabrous regions of our palms, our bottoms of our feet, some portions of our face, but the rest of our body is covered in hair. Each of those hair follicles is encapsulated with a C-tactile fiber, which stimulates not the somatosensory cortex, but the affective region of the brain, in particular the insula. And the insula is the powerhouse of our emotional map center, our emotional regulation of the sensations that we feel within. So we're starting to get some really good information that skin stimulates the somatosensory cortex, hairy skin stimulates the insula and the emotional centers, and we refine both maps through this safe and novel touch stimuli, including tape. So I'm just super excited that we are learning so much more about this touch stimuli in general that influences pain as well as our movement. And so if I had to kind of summarize, just remember a smudged map, your inability to assess where your body's in space and assess your internal sensations that we have within, including pain, that leads to a lack of awareness. It increases the threat because your brain can't predict the future because it doesn't have a good perceptual map to be able to lean on. And so that goes into threat mode. Increase your pain, decrease your movement. It's just consistently been shown to be the same. So if we can provide a novel and safe stimulus, tape could be one of those examples. It's not the only thing, but it's one thing that we can take advantage of. We can start to improve our map clarity. We can start to decrease the threat, which has been shown to decrease pain as well as movement. I went through pretty much, a full textbook of, neurology there. So I'm not expecting, this to be complete, but it is telling us that I'm starting to move, and I want you guys to start to move away from just focusing on muscles, because we're not just working on muscles, we're working on the nervous system. So I truly believe tape to be less of a mechanical stimuli or hardware system. It's more of a software system influencing the nervous system to be able to make the appropriate predictive, decisions. So let's get to the tape itself. I'm blowing through this quickly because I want to make sure I have some time for questions. This tape is not rigid athletic tape. It's intended to be flexible. It's the term should be kinesiology tape or elastic therapeutic tape. The reason I say that is if someone says kinesio tape, that's a brand, just like rock tape is, just like KT tape, just like Muscle Aid, I believe, is another brand. There are multiple brands that you can choose from. So remember, just choose what works best for you. But the category of tape should be kinesiology or elastic therapeutic tape. When you start looking at the literature, you're going to see more and more of the category name versus just the brand name, just for your awareness. Most kinesiology or elastic therapeutic tape is typically a blend of cotton and nylon. The nylon is what provides the elasticity. And they generally are using an acrylic-based adhesive. The acrylic-based adhesive is the same adhesive that we would use for wound bandages, for example. So the most hypoallergenic adhesive that you will find is going to be an acrylic-based adhesive. There's no latex, there's no zinc, at least in ours. I can't speak for others, but ours are latex-free and zinc-free. I hope you guys all know this, but when it comes to OSHA guidelines, they identify kinesiology tape, elastic therapeutic tape as a first aid. We're in multiple different industries applying kinesiology tape on the worker because the OSHA has identified that as a first aid. So just recognize that it is a first aid tool. It's water resistant. This is important that you could be wearing this for multiple days, so you can shower and groom yourself accordingly. It is movement tolerant because it's elastic. It does not restrict your range of motion, allows you to perform the movement that you need to for your specific task, and it manages discomfort and swelling, which I'm going to show you with the literature. There are three, I could only speak for ours, but others follow a similar type of pathway. They have multiple levels of adhesion. So we have a level 1, level 2, and level 3, gentle, standard, and extra sticky. You would choose the one most appropriate for the individual and the environment that they're in. So if you're in Houston in the middle of the summer and you got a bigger guy like me that sweats a lot, you might want to choose extra sticky. So I would suggest that you would use different adhesives according to the individual that you're working with. Gentle, just for those that are kind of thinking about this, is typically indicated more for the geriatric, pediatric, or compromised skin populations. I don't see this one used as much in the workplace, but it's definitely indicated for those that are more sensitive to tape in general. So something to consider. The expectation, though, that it wouldn't last as long as others would. We have extra wide tape for larger areas of the body. You're going to see some examples of that. We have pre-cut rolls, which I actually like. It just limits the need for scissors to be able to cut tape. But I understand that if you're measuring a specific body part, that cutting it, yourself might be better suited. I understand that. I just see the ease of use of pre-cut tape works best for me. We have custom tape, so we're having some of our partners wanting the custom logo of their industry on the tape. That's an option that exists, and we just came out with reflective tape. I wanted to share that with you because in this setting, if getting high visibility is one of the needs of that individual, and they need tape, you might want to consider our reflective tape, which allows it to provide that visibility necessary for that individual's safety. So just throwing it out there. This form of tape, important that this should be left on the body for at least 3 to 5 days. So when you apply it, you want to inform the individual that they can shower and groom themselves accordingly, and there are best practices of how to make sure that it stays on the body safely and effectively. But it should be on the body for generally a week, and that's what usually works well in this setting. So that's the expectation, is 3 to 5 days. Rock tape, to Susan's comment at the beginning of finding this tape just sticking better than potentially the others, everyone thinks it's typically due to the adhesive, and I would argue that that's not the case. What makes the main difference of rock tape versus the other, and this is not a sales pitch, is just to indicate that we just added more nylon to our tape, which provides about 30 to 40% more flexibility. And why does that matter? Is that if the range of motion necessary for the specific body part is significant, and the tape doesn't have the necessary flexibility to manage that range of motion, it will peel off the body, or worse, it will cause a traction injury to the skin. So you want to have a flexible enough strip of tape that allows for the range of motion necessary for the job task. That's what's provided us the longevity that we're seeing compared to other brands. So that's just for your awareness. We're seeing this in the workplace, as I already told you. Depending on the staff of the industry or the company, they might have staff members that apply it to the workforce, or we're actually instituting a lot of self-taping protocols where we educate the employee to be able to tape themselves. Some areas need assistance, but most areas can be taped themselves, specifically with this new model that I'm going to show you in a second here. We did a tape, we've done multiple pilots, but this has been the most impressive. So, hence the reason I want to share that one first, but they're all around the same. Most of our pilots that we've done are typically 3 months. Anyone that's interested in doing a pilot within their specific industries, reach out to me. I'll provide you my contact at the end. And what we provide is, obviously the product and the education necessary, depending on if it's, the individual being taped or taping themselves. And we tested, saying, could this make a change in recordables? Can it save the company money? And we're getting more and more data saying, yes, that is the case. We're seeing 26% reduction in a 3-month pilot in a distribution site, multiple distribution sites. and then a average of $65,000 in savings per site. So it's getting a lot of attention lately because it's a simple application and getting really good outcomes in respect to recordables. One of the other reasons I stayed on is because I get to innovate. And this has been a project, I've shared it with Susan, a project I've been working on for several years. And we're looking at kind of taking tape from just being an elastic neurosensory tool like we've been discussing, but could this tape be more supportive? And this is a product that I want to kind of highlight to you today. I've got a quick little hype reel to share with you. So quick, I know, but here are the key features of this form of tape that just launched in the last couple of weeks, in fact. And it's been a 3-year project in development because there's a lot of tech involved in this. But ultimately, what we've done, using the image that you can hopefully see of me, we've medically adhered a super polymer film on top of a traditional strip of rock tape or kinesiology tape. And what this polymer does is that it reactively will change its behavior according to the speed of movement. So if you're moving slowly, the tape will perform similar to what we just discussed. It's more of a neurosensory tool. It does not restrict your range of motion. But if the need of the movement requires faster movements or vibratory environments that you're being exposed to, this material, this super polymer, has the ability to stiffen according to the speed of movement. So it has been shown to absorb more energy around the tissues that are being taped. It helps to redistribute the load, so it gets it away from, let's say, a musculotendinous junction of an Achilles complex, a knee complex, a rotator cuff. It's been shown to dampen vibration. So those folks that are exposed to a lot of vibratory stress, let's say standing on a platform, this type of tape applied to the foot could potentially decrease the vibratory load, the cumulative vibratory load to that tissue. And it's customizable. There's not many tools out there that allow you to kind of redistribute load to a specific area. But now that we have a strip of tape, we can apply that according to the area that we're trying to influence. So I'm super excited about this product. It's basically kinesiology tape on the left, and it's a supportive tape on the right, a reactive supportive tape. So this is why I've been kind of dubbing this as smart tape or intelligent tape. It only stiffens when you need it. And that's what makes this a very unique category of tape. I actually truly believe it's a new category of tape of reactive, strain reactive, capabilities that allow us to kind of offload tissue. So before I get into the applications that kind of showcase, the simplistic model that I want to present to you, just as a summary, the taping benefits that we've highlighted today is that it can help to manage discomfort, postural control, and control swelling. We're going to show you examples of each of these, but I want to throw a third one. It's now, with the use of Rock Tape X powered by this rayon material, we could potentially even control movement as well, which we've identified through some lab studies. So does it really work? I'm going to blow through this because most of you don't want to kind of go through all of the literature line by line. But topically, I want to kind of demonstrate to you that the literature is caught up. This product has been available since the 70s. Kinesiotape, the grandfather of this category, started in the 70s. And unfortunately, most of the literature focuses attention on, could we turn on or turn off a muscle? Can we activate or inhibit? And all of that has been debunked. And I want to stress the idea that there's very little evidence that's consistent that indicate that we can actually toggle a muscle on or off. But because we're getting better questions in the literature and we're getting more literature stacked up so we can do systematic reviews and meta-analyses, this is the evidence that we have. A 2021 study, systematic review, meta-analysis of 36 studies showed improvement in both pain and disability lasting up to 5 days. So again, we're getting the evidence that are kind of reiterating the claims that I've shared with you earlier on. We're getting evidence maps. Not only are we getting evidence that it helps with pain and disability, but now we're getting more specificity of what areas of the body are best indicated or discouraged, for example. So this one's looking at 41 systematic reviews 127 are CTs, and they're showing that, let's say, for example, plantar fasciitis and de Quervain's is really promising according to the literature. But what's discouraged is non-specific neck pain that we just don't necessarily know why the individual is experiencing it. Maybe, according to the literature, maybe that's an area that we want to avoid because we don't have good data to support it. So these evidence maps are really, in my opinion, beneficial to have in your back pocket, because if you have someone presenting with, let's say, a chronic lower back pain, the evidence, according to all of these studies, is indicating that it's probably recommended. So it gives you more confidence that you should be using that for that specific area of the body. Specific to specific areas of the body, chronic lower back pain, highly indicated when it comes to the research on tape. It's showing superior to minimal interventions. And more importantly, it's showing the combination of tape with some type of strategies. The two of those stacked together gives you optimal outcomes. Impingement syndrome, if you're dealing with folks that have shoulder impingement, some of the data here, and this is looking at one study looking at it's as good as an injection plus exercise. So if you want to avoid an injection, which is indicated for some people, but why wouldn't you consider tape and exercise first before you inject them? So that's something to consider, because the evidence is starting to indicate that we're getting equal outcomes. Carpal tunnel syndrome showing improvements in as a conservative intervention for mild to moderate CTS. Elbow meta-analysis in 2020 showed that 168 patients demonstrated statistical superior pain scores, grip strength, so not just pain, but also function, grip strength, modified Mayo Performance Index, and DASH scores. So it's, again, I want to stress that we're starting to see that it's not just pain perception, it's optimizing the brain's confidence to be able to move that body part as well. Critically important for overall functionality. Knee pain, plenty of studies on knee, but they're saying all the same thing. More effective in the management of individuals with knee osteoarthritis, which is becoming more and more prevalent as the workforce is getting older and older. Cervical, I talked about this earlier, that if it's non-specific neck pain, the recommendations aren't really high. But if we understand the mechanism of why that person's experiencing neck pain, and we start seeing that they're actually having proprioceptive loss, they're having inability aware of their sensory map, we potentially could use this. And this one showed 3 to 7 days effectively decreased joint position errors, so ultimately improving their sensory mapping, and neck pain intensity. So that's demonstrating we improve the map, joint position errors, we improve their pain perception, and potentially even their movement, which is this also showed with these individuals. Can't stress this one enough. We're getting more and more data to say, yes, it can help with pain and movement, or pain and proprioception, but what about movement in general? This one showed that it showed a statistical significant reduction in lumbar spine flexion. So the individuals that we're trying to train, proper lifting mechanics, they just don't necessarily know where their body's in space. Their map is smudged. That tape has been shown to actually optimize their ability to sense where their body's in space. Critically important. So we're using the tape. I know it's hard to see, but in this area there's a beige tape that's similar to this tone of skin, but that vertical strip of tape coupled with the corrective strategy showed better outcomes overall. So using it as a proprioceptive or tactile cue to be able to improve their movement dynamics. Not only pain and proprioception and cueing, but also has been shown to improve dexterity. So in the hand, for those that have very specific tasks that involve hand dexterity, this one showed improvements in joint position sense awareness of participants with an error greater than 3. So showing that we can actually improve fine motor movements as well by just integrating tape. Showing improvements in dynamic function. So this is looking at the Y balance score. So balance and overall, function within a specific range of motion. Showed improvements in Y balance scores, knee joint position sense error. Again, going back to our mapping conversation, were both improved, but just by using a strip of tape over the specific area of the body. So I know I blew through that, but I'm hoping I'm kind of leaning into your level of confidence that there's enough literature that supports this, and there's opinion that this is just quackery. But if you spend some time in the literature and actually read the studies, not just abstracts, you're seeing some great research that is indicating that tape is indicated, safe, and effective. So let's talk about that safety. Let's make sure I'm good. I'm doing good on time. So it's safe. First and foremost, there's low adverse reaction rates. Like I said, it's latex-free and hypoallergenic. And if you follow the best practices, we have a pretty robust best practice protocol. The likelihood of any type of adverse reaction is very low. You guys know this best. I don't need to tell you how to rule out red flags, but you're ruling out red flags. You're not taping someone that you shouldn't be. So do your due diligence, rule out red flags. Be discreet when you're exposing the area. You're in an environment that's not a closed environment for most of you. From what I've been exposed to, they're typically open, bay areas. You might have an area where you could provide some type of discretion where you might have some privacy curtains. I would strongly suggest to have some clothing options that someone could put on if you can't expose the area that you would like to tape. But have these things kind of implemented into your policies and procedures, so then you don't run up against someone saying, well, I don't want to pull up my pant leg. So you want to have things ready so then you can expose the area accordingly. What I'm going to show you now is kind of our model of approach. It's very simple, and some of you are going to roll your eyes saying, man, this is just seems too simple. But if you lean on what we're trying to accomplish, you're going to see that this is effective enough, and you don't have to add complexity to something that actually works. So first and foremost, the individual is going to tell you what they're experiencing. They will point to the area. They will give you a target. So make sure that you take advantage of that, because if you put a strip of tape over someone's owie, the psychosocial benefit of that, which we're going to talk about, is critically important. At the very least, you've taken a stance where you've listened to the individual and you've applied something. And if they have previous awareness of this tape on an athlete, and they say, my gosh, if a professional athlete is using this tape and now they've applied this on me, what do you think that does to their confidence in what we can provide them? So it's important that they identify the target, and then we start to apply the intervention. Make sure that the skin is ready for the intervention. I basically use alcohol wipes, and I wipe down the area regardless if they think that they have cream or anything on. I make sure that I set the stage. We have a 4-step progression. I don't have time to get through all of the steps in detail, but I want to stress the point that it always starts off with something as simple as a primary strip. A single strip of tape over a target area can be as effective for the majority of people that you will be interacting with. I have different levers that I'm going to provide you that you can add to that if necessary, but we don't need to add complexity to it if it's not necessary. So a single strip of tape, which I call the Band-Aid approach, works for more than 80% of the population. I've been taping for well over 20 years. I'm very confident with this statement. So I want to stress, a single strip of tape can be just as effective as multiple strips. If that didn't get you the outcome you wanted, you can go to a secondary strip, which we call the X marks the spot. I'm going to show you all of this. If that secondary strip applied with no added stretch, which I'm going to recommend, doesn't get you the outcome you're looking for or they're looking for, we can start adding stretch to it. So you can see that I'm incrementally adding a greater stimuli to the area, but I'm not going immediately to multiple strips of tape, adding amounts of stretch, which could lead to skin irritation. I don't need to do that. I'm going to incrementally add these interventions according to what the needs are. And then the last one is what we call tweak taping. I'm going to share that with you. It's amazing what this form of taping can provide, but it's number 4 for a reason. It's the most aggressive to the skin, which could lead to adverse reactions. So you want to make sure that their skin can tolerate it. So this is the process. We start off with identify the target, which the individual will provide you. We are going to stretch the area, not the tape. So we're going to stretch the body part, which you can coach the individual of how to effectively and safely and comfortably stretch the body part. And we're going to apply a primary strip over that target. That could be it for day 1. And if they come back, and you can decide what that looks like, it could be at the end of your shift, your next day, at the end of your week, you can decide of how you want to do this. My recommendation is, if it's your first time, I want to see you by the end of your shift, at the very least, the beginning of your next shift. And we assess, did you get a better, no change, or good, better, or, oh my gosh, I can't get it out. Did you get a good outcome or not? And if they didn't get the outcome they were looking for, we could add a secondary strip, which is the X marks the spot. And again, none of these are applied with any stretch, which I'm going to show you in more detail. So the tape on the skin is going to create that lifting effect that we've been talking about, which has been shown to stimulate these mechanoreceptors that has that conversation with that part of the brain, that respective part of the brain where that body part's map resides. So remember, that's what we're trying to do here. Most of the applications that you'll see either look like an X or an H, depending on what body part or region that we're taping. So X's and H's what you'll generally see, but not always if we kind of reiterate this new model. So we're going to identify the target, we're going to stretch the skin, a primary strip, and if necessary, a secondary strip. I'm going to say this a couple of times so we can drive home the message. And by the end of this, I'm hoping that you should be able to apply. So stretch the skin. It needs to be comfortable, so make sure that the individual is comfortable to put their body part into a comfortable stretch. The primary strip is 1 to 2 strips depending on the size of the body part. That's how you would choose how many strips you would use. Most extremities, a single strip will suffice. So you're seeing a good example for a lateral elbow or a forearm in this case. If they didn't get the outcome they wanted on the subsequent visit, I'm going to be adding a secondary strip. Again, this is applied with no added stretch. The stretch is in the body part, not the tape. So that's really important here. And as a reminder, my goal here is to basically, and this is what I tell my patients or my clients, I'm telling them that I'm trying to shine a spotlight on this area. Your area, you don't have very good awareness of where this body part is. We're going to make this very clear. We're going to decrease your blind spot in this area. I'm trying to give you different ways of storytelling that makes sense to people. Because if you tell them I'm taping your extensor brachii, ulnaris, they're going to be like, and why are you doing that? And what does it matter? So this, to me, makes more sense for most people, that we're just improving their GPS coordinates to that specific body part. Does direction of the tape matter? Nope. It's been shown again and again. It doesn't matter if you tape from high to low, low to high, origin to insertion, insertion to origin. I'm showing you 2 or 3 papers here that are saying the same thing. What about stretch? I've been saying that less stretch is more indicated. Some people say that 75%, 50%, 100% stretch is more indicated because a textbook or a manual has told them so. While the literature is telling us probably not the case. This is a recent one that looked at 25% tension on the tape significantly reduced the suprathreshold pressure pain. So it just gives us an idea that less may be more. So I always call this the minimally effective dose. We don't need as much stretch as we once thought. And the less stretch you apply to the tape, the less likelihood of skin reactions. So my best practice when it comes to taping is to tape with less stretch and then incrementally increase it if necessary, but I never go more than 50% stretch. And that's just a standard that we followed for well over a decade now. How to remove it and why to remove it. I always tell people if it gets itchy or if you see redness around the edges or any other type of skin irritant, you're going to remove the tape. And we're going to remove it in a specific way, which we guide them how to do this. I don't have time to go into the specifics, but we don't take it off like our moms told us to take off a Band-Aid. We don't grip it and rip it. We take it off sequentially. We're holding the skin. It's much more comfortable and it's much more effective. So just be aware that we have protocols of how to remove it. If someone's a big baby, I'm one of those people. You can use different adhesive emulsifiers. So Unisolve is a great one to decrease the adhesion. If someone has skin allergies or skin reactions, but they still want to use the tape, you can actually paint the area with milk of magnesia, which actually provides a film between the tape and the skin. I don't use that very often, but there are certain athletes. I still work with the athletic population, and they want tape on their body. Milk of magnesia has been my go-to for quite some time. So you apply it, let it dry, and then you can apply the tape over, less reaction to the skin. These are the non-negotiables. It needs to be comfortable, it needs to be safe, and it needs to be practical. So critically important to be able to do this. I'm going to get into the applications now. I'm going to blow through these because you're going to see that it doesn't take much to really understand what I want to get across now. When it comes to the spine, most of the time you're going to see H patterns because we're talking about a larger area of the body that we're trying to cover to provide that stimulus to the brain. So these are the applications that you'll see. The black strips would be the primary strips applied over the target, and then the red strip would be the secondary strip. So this is a kind of like an advanced application for someone that needed more stimulus to the area. The same process goes to different regions of the brain. The individual identified, cervical thoracic symptoms. That's the dot on the area. That's their target area. Single strip of tape. This is in a horizontal direction, but that is my primary strip of tape. That could be it for that day one. And I want to assess, did I get a good outcome or not? And if I didn't, I could always add a secondary strip, which is going to be applied with no stretch to begin with, and then I could add stretch according to their skin tolerance and their needs over time. So giving you the same idea. I like to use 4-inch for a lot of my spine or trunk applications because it just covers more real estate. So I use the extra wide or 4-inch strip of tape. These are just showing you all primary strips of tape. One strip of tape, the Band-Aid approach over a target area. Very effective, very efficient, very easy to apply. So that's just something else for you guys to consider. I call that the primary patch. Extremities. I'm going to show you multiple examples of X patterns because when it comes to the extremities, typically 2 strips will suffice. They're going to show you a target, primary strip in the middle. If we need more, we can add a secondary strip. We could add stretch to that secondary strip if necessary. Multiple areas, like I'm going to call hamstring or posterior thigh. Even though we're taping the skin, I want to kind of go to the area that person identifies. They might say, my hamstring is strained. Fine. I'm going to be taping over the area that you've identified. They've considered a hamstring. I know that I'm taping their map, right? Achilles complex. They give you a location, primary strip. That could be it. Secondary strip if necessary. So I hope you guys are getting the picture that it's the same protocol for most areas of the body. Plantar aspect of the foot. They give me a location, kind of leaning more towards the calcaneus, primary strip. If we need more, we can add a secondary strip. X marks the spot over that region. I'll do upper extremity to kind of demonstrate some of the upper extremity ones, showing you the same protocol. Elbows, same idea. Thumbs, if you're doing smaller areas of the body, I basically just cut the 2-inch strip of tape into small 1-inch strips. Athletic trainers, as a general rule, and this is where I learned it from, pre-cut these strips so they're at the ready. If I know I have a finger or a thumb coming in, I have my strips ready to go. I have a stack of them really to be able to be the most effective and efficient with any problem that I'm faced with. So I'm ready to tape someone almost immediately. The one I want to share with you, and I'm kind of leaning into my time, I apologize, but I'll get done very quickly here, is the new 2021 study. What they basically did was that they used the skin as a handle, and they were dragging the skin in different directions to be able to identify a preferential direction that gave that person the most amount of relief. So if they drag the skin upwards or inwards or into a bunch, we're dragging into the center, doesn't really matter, but that direction is going to be your target now. So whatever direction I found, and I'm going back to that last one, by dragging their skin in different directions, and the individual says, that direction gave me the most relief, guess what? You're going to be taping them in that same direction. So this is what we call tweak taping. We're going to directionally glide the tape in the direction that individual has indicated. It's a huge win. When they say, that made all the difference in the world, we're going to tape them in that direction, and we lock that in, and that individual walks away saying something significant has occurred, specific to their needs. So I want to stress that this one is done only when you know their skin can tolerate it. So this is why it's number 4 on the list of our protocol. This is showing you other examples. I would test the skin in different directions for the lumbar spine, and whatever direction I found to be most favorable, I'm going to tape them in that direction. And I'm pulling the tape as well as pushing the skin and then locking that down. Because this is elastic tape, the amount of shear is less than rigid tape. It's comfortable, and it typically lasts for several days. I'm using 4-inch because it's a larger region of the body. So postural taping, going to show you the same thing. There's evidence to indicate that if we can improve someone's position that gives them relief, you should tape them in that position. Similar to what I just said when it comes to tweak taping, I don't believe that there's a specific posture for everyone, but there is a specific posture for the individual that gives them physical relief as well as emotional relief. So this has been well documented. This is Wilkes in 2017 finding that upright posture reduced fatigue and increased their positive affect. So if we can improve their physical symptoms as well as their state, their mood, that's a huge win. So all we're doing here is taking what the evidence is telling us, that we can improve fatigue as well as delayed onset muscle soreness of poor posture for that individual. And we're basically just doing what I'm doing with tweak taping, but now we're tweaking their posture. So we're basically finding the position that most relieves their symptoms and gives them relief in general, and we're locking them down with 1 to 2 strips of tape to remind them when they lose that posture. Simple as that. So don't think that we're taping the scapulothoracic junction to improve rhomboid activation. Think about that we're helping that person remind themselves where their posture is most advantageous for them. That's it. And so it really simplifies the application and giving someone autonomy that they can be reminded when they lose their posture. This tape will remind them, and they make their self-correction. So that's an active correction versus passively relying on some type of strapping that locks them there, right? So this is just showing you an example. I'm putting them into a stretch position just so I can apply the tape to their body. And then once I get the tape on the body, I'm going to assume the position that I want them to be in. So I'm kind of using that position to get it onto the body. Now I'm making the correction. They tell me what that position is. And then I just lay the tape down. Again, no added stretch. And you can see I would do this in an X pattern because it gives them kind of bilateral control to that body part. What a great way to help someone with their overall position versus posture. And I quite often use the large strips of tape because, again, I get more coverage, more real estate, stimulus, and I get more, more comfort overall with the larger strips of tape. Last one, I'm up against it. Sorry, Susan, but I'm going to give you some extra time here, is the taping for inflammation. We can take the same idea of this mechanical lifting effect of the skin to be able to help with inflammation, both acute and chronic. Most of the inflammation applications that you'll see are going to be fanned like this because it just gives you more surface area of coverage. So you're ultimately just covering the area with these small little strips of tape to be able to optimize fluid control versus just pain. It's much more comfortable and it covers more surface area. That's why you see these types of patterns when it comes to inflammation. It covers a larger region of the body and it's more comfortable. So you can see all the examples of the areas that we can apply. Lastly, don't forget we're dealing with an individual, that the hurt they feel is real. They're looking for answers, and we're affecting their sensory system, but we're also affecting their emotional and cognitive systems as well. So by taking this biopsychosocial approach, that we are, improving their social identification, we're improving their autonomy, we're decreasing their threat. We're educating them of why this is going on. And if a simple strip of tape gives them relief, there's less likely of something mechanical or physical going on. So we're just building this idea that we're creating this therapeutic alliance by educating, empowering, and engaging the individual just by using tape. We have plenty of resources for you guys, from scripts to one-pagers. We have ebooks, we have posters, we have manuals. My gosh, we got so much stuff that we can provide you guys. So if you guys are looking for more assets, please lean on me. And so I'm going to be the individual that you would work with. And so when you're working in this, industrial athlete environment, we need to understand that they're seeing tape on other individuals. They're asking either themselves or their coworkers, I think tape might be indicated. Take advantage of that opportunity. Be curious, always looking to improve someone's movement, and just try to smile more overall. If you want more information on the Industrial Athlete Program, we have education on our education platform called FMT Plus. I'm more than happy to give you guys a link to that. And this is the code for this session for all those that have kind of lasted all the way to the end with me. Equinox is the code, FYI. And here's my contact. So I'm going to stop there. I unfortunately went right to time, but hopefully I'll have a couple minutes to answer some questions if I need to.
Thank you for that. Fantastic. I mean, I know that was a whirlwind, guys, but what awesome information. I got a couple questions. If you guys want to hang out, I know we have sessions starting in 15, but I'm going to throw a couple of these at you, Steve.
Great.
So Sarah asked, when you say a smudged map, I think referring to the kind of neuroplasticity intro we had earlier, right?
Yeah.
Are you meaning in the context of a body that has experienced an injury or trauma? That was the question.
Not always. Some of our maps can be impeded by just a change in our movement dynamics, some sedentary environments. If you're doing long sittings, our maps of our areas of the body that aren't moving aren't being fed neurologically. So those areas of the body are neurologically compromised as it relates to maps. So it's not always pain.
Great answer. Yeah. And guys, there's a lot of neuroplasticity information out there. I highly recommend that you look into that incredible area of perception. It'll really help you to categorize a lot of what we've talked about today. So a question from Kez. She's asking, are you starting them in a stretch to determine the length to cut?
Not necessarily, because the tape is typically has about 10 to 15% stretch applied to it on the paper backing. So I will just measure the around the target to maybe answer your question more discreetly. If they give me a target, I'm measuring 1 to 2 inches on either side of that target. That's my measurement to the area. The stretch is applying a stretch to the skin, which decreases the amount of shear to the skin. So it protects the skin.
Awesome. And then from Craig, for inflammation taping, are we still placing the anchor side in the region of the lymph nodes?
Yeah, that's been debunked overall. Does it mean that it doesn't work? Absolutely not. But here's what we're finding is that by taping with the base applied more proximally, with the fingers applied distally, the tape just doesn't last as long, because when you're putting clothing on, it catches those loose ends and it rolls up. So there's been enough evidence to indicate that if the base is inferior with the fingers moving proximally or vice versa, you're getting the same effect. So our recommendation is to tape with the base typically inferior with the fingers moving proximally. So then you decrease that, you increase the likelihood of that tape staying on the body.
Awesome. Those were all the questions that we had. And so we'll leave it there because I know we're over by a couple minutes, but thank you again. I mean, this presentation has been awesome. I hope that you guys enjoyed as much as I did. The links, hopefully you guys got the slide notes. I pinned that in the chat. As a reminder, the code word for this is
Equinox.
So capture that and you guys can go ahead and submit that for credit. And actually our grand prize, if you are one of the top scorers, you will get access to a course on the FMT Plus platform that Stephen was talking about. So there's 6 CEUs for you. We know it's a BOC year, so I know we are just mining for those CEUs, right? But that's all we have today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session, and thank you for joining us here at VNS.
This concludes the IETS On Demand Continuing Education Program video. To claim your CU, you must be a member of the Industrial Athletic Trainers Society and complete the form Claim Your CU found in the YouTube description. If you have any interest in learning more about what the Education Committee has to offer, reach out to the email address on your screen. If you would like to volunteer your time to speak on a topic that interests you, please reach out. Thank you, and stay safe.